Greetings programs, welcome back to CK2. Now I'm going to say right away this is actually a post video commentary, and that's for a specific reason, in that in a very rare and annoying move Audacity decided to close itself. It basically crashed while I was recording, and initially looking at the post, when I closed the game and I thought, oh, I just forgot to start Audacity, I just had a complete brain fart. No, actually I did start Audacity and it crashed after only like the first 7 minutes of recording. Very unusual, very annoying. So that's the whole half-hour recording gone. So I'm going to have to try and do this post-commentary and we'll see if we can actually remember. Normally if this happened I would just go back and redo the whole thing, but actually some interesting stuff took place. So we're going to give this a go instead. This is not going to be a usual for CK2 videos. I'm just going to try and remember what it was I was actually thinking about at the time. So as you can see, England's still very fractured. There's going to be stuff happening on the screen that I've got no control over. I'm just going to have to wing it slightly. Thanks Audacity. It's normally very reliable, but not this time. But as you can see, I was just having a quick look. I was pointing out that yes, it's effectively two civil wars that's going on there. There's one claim to the throne and another for the lowering of crown authority, and that helps me out a lot, because I can basically take advantage of England being in a weaker state potentially. And what I decided to do was actually stake a claim on Cumberland. I don't have any reason to declare war on England at the moment. You can't just declare war because you feel like it in this game. You have to have a reason, and sometimes you have to go and fabricate a reason. So I sent my my Chancellor down to Cumberland, and hopefully, it's totally unpredictable, but hopefully I will get a claim sooner rather than later, because England's only got access to like half his forces at the moment. So if I can do things to weaken England further in the meantime, that'll be even better. So I don't know if you remember, but I had a plot going to kill House Caption, the King, Magnus, or whatever his name was, of House Caption guy. So that might come in handy. Also, yes, I had another son, and I decided to leave him named Colin. The game just came up with Colin, so I thought, I'll just leave him as Colin, and who knows, maybe he'll grow up to be a ginger. Although, I wouldn't wish that fate upon anybody, that said. The other thing that's different about this recording that I want to point out just now is that I'm actually using different recording software, and at the recommendation of somebody I know, they said, why don't you try MSI Afterburner? And actually, it's not bad. I still have to transcode everything, which is annoying, but I was having an issue with having to transcode some stuff from Bandicam anyway, as well as the fact that Bandicam was occasionally dropping frames, which was obviously quite annoying. So it's a bit more in terms of the production time, in terms of how long it takes, because the transcoding process is not a particularly fast process, but it does seem to be of equal quality. And for anyone wanting to record their own stuff, MSI Afterburner is actually free. It's actually an overclocking facility for graphics cards and such, but you can totally ignore all that stuff, just use the recording facility. So I can't remember what I was talking about at this point. I was pointing something out, and I'm just going to have to wing it for large parts of this, because it was like 35 minutes of talking. I think this is the part where I was thinking, yes. Now, Caithness, I've had my eye on Caithness for a while, and I was thinking about maybe going after Caithness, which involves declaring war on Norway. So I was checking Norway's allies there, and what you can do, which is a little bit cheaty, but you can't necessarily do this in multiplayer, or you can switch it on or off. At least in EU4 you can. I'm not sure if you can for CK2 actually, but you can basically check out the military strength of your opponents. And I'm reasonably far up on that list. England's quite far down at the moment. They're still at the top, but they're actually below Norway, and that's because I've got that civil war going on. So that's really good for me. But I'm actually much further up that list than I thought I would be. I'm actually only one place behind France. Now, in terms of numerical strength, I would not like to take on France, but that's not so bad. I was just having a quick look at other people's forces there, really. I did wonder if it was the direct levies that you could pull up, or if it was the combination of your direct levies and your vassal levies. And it turns out it's that combination, because I was slightly worried that it was just going to be like the 8,000 was what England could pull up directly, at which point that's a much tougher fight for me. But as it is now, the 8,000 is what they can pull up in total. And I know I've also got a numbers advantage over Norway, and I know that they have to bring their troops over by boat, and that also gives me an advantage, because if you have to do that, you are then vulnerable whilst landing those forces. Now, I'm not sure if that's true for raiders or not. Oh yes, and we had one final, maybe, Edith event. It was certainly the only Edith event during the whole video, but it's basically acceptance. Everybody is now apparently okay with Edith of Athol just being all Brienne of Tarth about the place. And she's only like, it's funny because that message towards, it says something like, you know, even though it's now many years after the thing and she's half a legend in her own lifetime, she's only 24. I really didn't cover many years with this video at all, just because it turned out to be quite action-filled, really. So there we go. I have declared war on Norway, and it's something I've been meaning to do for a while. So while we don't have any immediate expansion plans into Ireland, that obviously is something I still have an eye on as well. But if I can take Caithness, it's a little bit of extra land. It's also one of the few, in fact, I think it's the only claim I can. That and the Orkneys and the Shetlands are probably de jure part of Scotland as well, but they're the only ones that I basically get a default claim on. I don't have to go and make a claim to get either of those. Whoops, I just nudged the microphone there. I'm still getting used to this setup. I've got it slightly closer this time. Hopefully it is not too close. The pop filter still hasn't arrived. It's actually, this has been, I've had the microphone for a couple of days now, and I ordered it and the pop filter at the same time, and the microphone arrived really promptly. The pop filter still hasn't. I'm actually going to send a message or something about it tomorrow, because in theory it's been posted, or at least I got a message saying it's been posted. I don't know, but it should be here, but it's not. Anyway, so I'm concentrating my forces in Caithness to try and basically get the siege. But oh, they've landed some troops. Okay. Well, I want to keep as many troops intact as possible, so I actually decide I'm going to consolidate those forces, abandon the siege of Caithness for now, and actually move them down to that fight in Ross. Now, you can see the morale disadvantage just from that fight, even though it's 2,000 versus 200. There's actually a decent chance that my 200 can hold on for long enough to get reinforcements there, because the morale disadvantage from landing troops is so... You really want to avoid fighting right after you've landed, or even like landing your troops into a fight, because you will get spanked fairly hard, and the Norwegians just did get spanked fairly hard. Now, if you're wondering why we're looking at the cardinal screen, it's just because I realised I hadn't actually ever really shown off the cardinal screen or system before. And the way it works is, it's a bit like... if you've played as a Republic at all, if you've got the Republic DLC, which you need to have, basically you can influence elections by throwing money. You know, you get your personal pool of money and you say, right, I'm going to put this much in the campaign fund, and that gives you campaign power, and that makes you that much more likely to be elected the next Doge. Well, you can do the same thing with the College of Cardinals if you are a Catholic character. You can basically try and get one of your own bishops or archbishops, whatever, elected to the College of Cardinals when seats come up. And I think if you had enough controlled cardinals, you could basically pick out a pope. And I'm sure that would be quite useful. I'm sure there'd be some interesting benefit to that. We're just upgrading Dagobah a bit there. Invest some of that money. Castle fortifications are decent, but castle walls give you a little bit of extra everything. So they're what you want to go for first, really. But the other thing that happens in this video, well, I'll just go ahead and say it. You'll see it when it comes up anyway, but an anti-pope basically appears. So there's two ways of getting control of the pope. The more expensive, but, you know, air quotes, legit way is by controlling enough cardinals to then basically have the election be for who you want it to be. Or you can just set up your own anti-pope, which, as you can imagine, will severely strain relations with the original Pope, I guess you'd say. I was going to say the actual Pope, but original probably works better. But we get a bit of a Bran Stark event here. Yeah, I actually this was from Yoda. Yoda the second one of the. I was actually checking here. How many sons have I got, just in case I kill this one? And I actually go with the risky one, and he gets the brave trait, so he doesn't end up like Bran Stark. Although I have to say, Bran Stark is one of the more interesting characters in a Game of Thrones. Like, he has a really interesting arc. So they use their boats to bring their forces back down into Ross. I was too busy blethering about cardinals and whatever at the time, so I missed my opportunity to have forces waiting for them. So what I decided to do was just wait out the siege of Caithness. And I'll point out, at the moment, it's actually Caithness. Well, it will become Caithness if I conquer it. One of the nice features of... I can't even remember which update it was, but basically the name of a lot of the provinces can be culture dependent. So if you have Norse people, you know, of Norse culture holding various provinces, you can have sort of Norse names for them, or whatever, you know, depending on the languages involved. And the same goes for like French and Turkish and whatever. So they actually turned up with more troops, and at this point I decided, right, I've only got my direct levies out at the moment. I need to get my vassal levies raised as well. And I probably have a terrain advantage. I was actually trying to see, I couldn't remember where to see if I had an actual terrain advantage there, but this event popped up, which interrupted me slightly, but it was basically this particular bishop was like, oh, I see you have a son that needs a tutor. And I looked at him, and I looked at his stats, and I thought, yeah, he's proud, he's deceitful, he's greedy. You know what? Yeah, he can be the tutor for Anakin Skywalker. Those seem like appropriate traits to maybe pass on. And and this is where the fun starts. So I did mention that we had a plot extant to kill King Magnus II of House Caption Guy. And this event popped up saying, would you like to pay nearly 200 gold to try and pull this off? And I guess because he's a fairly major figure, it was quite an expensive plot. If it had been a count or something, probably would have been much cheaper. But although it was quite a lot of my money, I thought, you know what, that's worth the go. So we did that. And as you can see, even though I don't have the numbers, I'm still winning that fight. That's the terrain advantage at work as well there. Like, that's the only thing that can really trip you up in CK2, and I've talked about this previously, is terrain. Ahaha, so it worked! Suck it, Caption Guy! You can just suck it! So we ended up with a rather young female queen. Queen is either going to be Synagith or Kynagith. I'm not quite sure which, but that gives me an advantage in several ways. For one thing, there is the short reign modifier, so that's a negative modifier to all her remaining vassals, all her loyal vassals. There's also a negative modifier because she's a female ruler under the laws that they have. I think culture has an effect as well, because unless you're Basque culture, which is, you know, northern Spanish, you can't actually have equal inheritance laws for men and women. You can actually create a Basque character, put them in a different court, and thereby unlock those laws, but you will still get that negative modifier from your vassals because they aren't themselves Basque. So there's the short reign, there's the female character, and also the next in line to the throne is also female, so female heir. So there's like a -35 to vassal opinion, all of which is really good for me. It really screws over the English throne, and it just see why I didn't want to get rid of this, just scrap this footage and start again. It was just too entertaining. So that's the war score, and I was actually pointing out that 40% of that nearly was just from a single battle. So sometimes, and I think it's to do with troop numbers, but sometimes the outcome of a single battle can actually be really important to the outcome of an entire war. And that's something that seems more prevalent in CK2 than EU4. EU4, you have to do a lot more sieging, generally speaking. Beating armies is useful for war score, but you still have to do a lot of sieging. Whereas in CK2, a couple of important victories, like 2 or 3 important battles, can get you most of the war score that you need. Obviously, you still, because this is a territorial claim, most claims are, you know, most Cassius Belli's are territorial in this game. I'm struggling to think if there are like trade wars or anything like that. Kind of. If you're a republic, you get different kinds of wars, and obviously there are religious wars as well, but they tend to be crusades or jihads, you know, for specific areas of land. So come to think of it, most of the wars are sort of land based, and I can't remember, why did I bring that up? I was probably pointing out some... I remember. I was talking about some of the cheats that you can use in this game as well. That's actually the command console, and that's how you input cheats into this game. And I'm playing this particular playthrough completely straight, basically, because there's no point putting it on the channel otherwise. But it was in the context of... I remember what it was now. If you capture the enemy king in battle, that's de facto, that's it, war won. And it's always risky fielding your king, because if they get killed in battle, obviously that has an effect on the enemy's forces. But if they get captured in battle, that's it, you've automatically lost the war. And one of the ways in which you can cheat yourselves to win a war is there is a cheat for imprisoning automatically enemy characters. So you just find out the character code for whoever the war leader is, and you type in imprison such and such a character. Bam! War won. It's ridiculously overpowered, but sometimes I start a game and I play it absolutely straight down the line, and other times I start a game of CK2 and I'm going to just use all of the Chet-ass, and I'm going to give myself, you know, oodles of gold, and I'm going to cheat to win every war, and I'm just going to go nuts and see how big of an empire I can actually build in as short a space as possible. And it's actually... it presents its own problems in CK2, because if you get a really big empire suddenly, all of a sudden... keeping it together is actually a pretty big challenge. So it's not like it's there's a similar cheat in EU4, which is that everybody agrees to every diplomatic demand that you make, and you can do ridiculous things. You can be a one province nation and vassalize the entire Ottoman Empire, but everybody will hate you for it, basically. Like, you can seriously create some really weird game situations. But anyway, we are handily winning this war. I have my war goal successfully sieged, and if I can, I probably won't need to siege Orkney, but if it comes to that, I can easily siege Orkney without having to raise any ships, because they've got no way to blockade. There's no fleet blockading in this game, unlike EU4 where you can blockade those crossings. But they've landed an army for me to beat. So again, if I can just beat this army, that's probably worth another big chunk of war score. And I was at this point checking to see if I could actually raise any more retinues as well. But I decided to hang on, because what I really want is a cavalry retinue at this point. And those are quite expensive in terms of retinue cap. And I don't actually have, or didn't have at this particular stage of the game, quite enough to raise a cavalry retinue. So I could have a cheaper retinue, but I decided to actually wait. So there we go. I was talking about kings possibly dying on the battlefield. That is exactly what happened to the enemy king. The King of Norway died in the field, and there is King Grim of Norway, his son. Now, that isn't an automatic loss, but I think it has a massive morale effect on the specific army that king was leading, basically. And now, I don't know if it actually, I say specific army, I don't know if it's the wing of the army or the whole army, but that's put me up to 97% war score from 60-odd%. So we're also at the stage where I've got ticking war score from holding Caithness itself. So I've basically won this war. You'll have to excuse me while I take a sip of tea. But it helps that I've got Edith there to lead my armies, because 34, that is an incredibly good military ruler. And she's probably got a few years left in her yet, unless I get unlucky. She might die in the field. She might catch a disease and die. She might, you know, get assassinated. But the likelihood is that with that earlier event where it was like, well, Edith is now accepted by the realm, it's unlikely. Potentially, and this is pure guesswork, but and there we go, it's changed to Caithness, now part of Scotland. It's probably still got Norse culture, but that will change over time. Yeah, I'm wondering if potentially those Edith events you can end up with like a noble rebellion, or if you can end up with like people conspire to assassinate her or something like that. You know, not specifically Edith, whatever the name, whatever name the game chooses. But yeah, so as the Count of Caithness, who is still a Norwegian, you know, this is just a transfer of vassalage. As he is part of the Duchy of Moray, I actually decide I'm going to increase the Duke of Moray's opinion of me by transferring the vassalage, because at the moment the Count of Caithness is a direct vassal of myself, and that's going to cause friction between myself and the Duke of Moray. But transferring the vassalage helps. It means that he has better of opinion of me, and also he'll be a bit less annoyed that I continue to hold directly two parts that are part of his duchy. So my claim on Cumberland was a success. Part of the Civil War is over. The Crown Authority, but the actual claim, the person that was claiming the English throne, that is still going on. So I decide I'm going to take the risk. Just everything, given everything that's happened, you know, I'm riding high after that last war. So what I'm going to do is, and it might all go horribly wrong, what I'm going to do is actually go for England and hope that it works out. And it, well, I could say what happens, but I don't want to. That'll just spoil things a bit, really. So I have the option of claiming for a member of my court or just claiming Cumberland directly. And as Cumberland is actually held by the Crown, the English Crown, directly, and as I have manufactured a claim, if I win this war, this will be a direct personal holding. It won't be that this will be a vassal of mine, because A, it's a claim that I've made, and B, because it's a direct holding of the crown of the other side, there's no vassalage to transfer there. It's not like they're going to be a count vassal but also the king of another country, or queen in this case. So I'm checking the actual stats again for the ledger, rather, to see what the enemy troops, how much troops they have. And I'm just raising everything all in one go this time, vassal levies and my own levies. And they do have more troops available after Mercia, basically after one part of the Civil War, the Crown Authority War, actually finished. But they are still weaker than me by maybe 2,500 troops, so I fancy my chances. Now, there we go, Mercia's just gone again, so that is, I was initially thinking, oh, they've got another civil war going. Well, actually what happens is the Duke of Mercia decides to join in on the side of the person that's claiming the throne, the English throne. So my destabilization of the English throne, this is it paying dividends, because that Duke obviously liked her little enough that when he was invited or even offered to join the Civil War, you know, that overrid his loyalty to the English throne. So that really works out. However, the Duke of Lothian also decides to get in on the action and try and make a claim on Cumberland also. This, by the way, and I think I point this out, it'll pop up on screen in a minute, but the Duke of Lothian, and I pointed this out at the end of the last video as well, he's got the content trait. Now, for a content vassal, he seems to go around declaring an awful lot of wars on people. I don't know. It would be nice if I had enough crown authority that vassals couldn't do that anymore, but I'm not at that stage yet. So I'm just consolidating all my troops. You can see there, that's a Lothian army. Wow, there has to be a good, what's the adjective for, I don't even know. Anyway, but their army's there, sieging already, and I decide I'm just actually going to march right past and start sieging whichever county that is further down. Lancaster? No, not Lancaster. Westmoreland. There we go. I can just about read it on the edit window of Sony Vegas. I was umming and ahhing about Yoda telling light wires, but in the end I went with the thing that was likely to give him the honesty trait, because Yoda was fairly blunt at the end of the day, but when he first met Luke Skywalker, you know, he wasn't above telling a fib or two, so maybe it would have been in keeping, but yeah, anyway. So things are going alright. Sorry, I was just having more tea there. I'm just sitting here, I'm being very relaxed. I'm just sitting here looking at the screen with my cup of tea in one hand, gesturing wildly with the other. So this was a bit boring at this point. It was just the usual thing of sieging. And hopefully, I know I sped it up at some point, but it was just down to the usual thing of waiting and seeing. Now, there is a bit of stuff going on in Ireland. There was one of my vassals had declared war for Leinster. I think it was also Lothian, but I'm not sure. It might have been Albany. I do take a look at it later on when I notice it happens, but you can see there, yeah, it's Albany. So you can see there the Albanian forces. Yeah, they're Albanian. Yep, that's what they are. Actually sieging Leinster, and they look like they're winning that war. So even without trying, I'm actually also getting more of Ireland, and it was not the intent to go after more Irish territory. It's just my vassals were doing their own thing, and therefore we ended up with more Irish territory. So this is the thing with playing CK2. Depending on the crown, the level of the crown laws, your vassals might be doing entirely their own thing, and that's one of the things I was trying to do in the last video, and something I was obviously a bit worried about in this video as well, is curtailing or not letting my vassals get too powerful, because they can be a real pain. You can end up with somebody deciding that they are more powerful than you are, and therefore they will start sending you demands about, you know, lower crown authority, or maybe even, oh well, I think I should be the king. So you have to be careful about letting your vassals get too powerful. So we had two people come of age at the same time. Duncan MacJedis is my eldest grandson. He's obviously a bastard son, as you can see by the little black teardrop. And his father is off in the Faroes. So I don't know how he's ended up in my court, but he has. And I'm just arranging a marriage for him there. Mace Windu also has come of age, so again we're going to arrange a marriage for him. And at this point I start to think about something I had been laying the groundwork for in the last video, which is putting one of my sons as a Duke of Ulster. Now at the moment I am at my demesne limit. I'm 7 provinces out of 7. And once I get Cumberland, if I hang on to it, which I think I will want to, because it's still part of the de jure Kingdom of England. England is going to declare war back for that at some point. That is going to happen. That's a guaranteed. But if I hold on to it myself, I'm not going to lose any vassals to the English, essentially. I will only lose the county. So it's really a strategic move. I'm just making a move on a weaker England, and if it pays off, it's going to be helpful. And I have weakened the English throne, but it's not forever. You know, this is just a temporary setback for them, unless, well, even if House Caption Guy falls off the English throne, somebody is still going to have that throne. I still have to think about the future. So I'm just looking through holdings at the moment, seeing where additional castles or whatever can be built. And I can build one in Moray there, so that's a possibility at some point. I obviously need a lot more. Oh dear, I'm wounded apparently. I need a lot more money in order to do that, but it's a possibility. So either Oriel or Tyrconnell can be given to one of my sons, and I'm just deciding which one. Now my eldest is, like I said, in the Faroes. My next eldest actually is the one that ran away to join the Knights Templar, as you saw there. So Mace Windu seems like the logical choice. So although the temptation is to immediately give him the Duchy of Ulster, and you can see there Leinster has been it's now a de jure, not a de jure anything. It's now a vassal of, or either a direct holding or a vassal of the Duke of Atholl there. But the Mace Windu is actually also the heir to the counties that my wife holds, the duchy even that my wife holds down in Wales. So he would basically have two duchies, but he'd be in charge of two quite split up duchies. So on balance, the risk of him getting too powerful is probably not that high, just because his duchies are rather geographically separated. Whereas Lothian, the Duke of Lothian was building up a power base right across the Central Belt and into Northern Ireland as well. So if I had trouble later with the Duchy of Lothian, and he might have even been able to call himself the Duchy of Ulster as well, you know, having a single duke with two titles, you have to be really careful at that point. He could have caused serious trouble if he decided to turn around and declare a civil war. So you have to think about these things. So the war's going all right. My vassal has actually sieged Cumberland, and oh hello. Well, that's an event where it's only positive outcomes out of that. So yeah. Also, but the more important message of the two is the fact that the Queen of England is offering peace terms, and I've only got 41% war score, but she is pressed on all fronts. And even though it's actually my vassal that controls it, the chances are it will be myself that, as his top level liege, that actually gets control. And there we go, I have Cumberland. So there we go, that worked out. I wasn't quite sure if I was going to get Cumberland or if it would be my vassal that gets Cumberland, but as it was, I do get Cumberland. So at this point I decide, right, I could just sit and be over my Demesne limit, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to give, and I was just flicking around to point out that, you know, the family is spread a bit around at this point. The MacJedis are also going to take over the Pharaohs, and that might then make it easier to tempt them into my realm by diplomatic means. It's not that easy, but it's a possibility. But either way, I either have to divest myself of Dagobah, which is my only barony holding, or give up either Oriel or Tyrconnell. And I actually have, as you can see, I've got a bunch of sons, and I could actually give it to one of my younger sons, because some of them are nearly, is it Anakin, or, no, Jason is nearly of age. He's only like, he's 13 or 14, so he's very close to actually being of age. I was trying to figure out at this point which was better to keep in terms of both tax and troops, but there really wasn't, or isn't much difference between the two, as I discovered. So I think one gives me slightly better tax, but I just decided to go ahead and give Mace Windu the title. Now, this might really far down the line, it might bite me in the ass when he's got both control of a duchy in Ireland and in Wales. But the Duchy of Ulster is by far the more powerful duchy of the two in terms of the lands controlled and the troops you can raise. So if it's a combination of a powerful duchy and a weak duchy, it doesn't matter that much. So I'm just going to take the risk. I'm going to do it, and it should pan out. It shouldn't be too much of a risk at the end of the day. But as we can see, we have gained not one, not two, but 3 new provinces. Now, only 2 of them were due to my direct action, and Cumberland we're going to have to fight over at some point. And as you can see there, well, England's still having trouble, so let's actually stake a claim on Northumberland too, if we can. But that might take a while. I got quite lucky with the claim on Cumberland. And I kind of waited this long, partly because you can only, you know, fight a war for 1 claim at a time. But also, if the claim was to pop up really quickly, I might not have had the cash to actually then say, well, go ahead and make the claim. Because you can do that, but if you then put yourself into debt, well, that's a whole other set of problems. And we've been in debt, you know, we've been there. It's not necessarily that much of an issue with how much cash flow I had. But if you are, say, 100 gold in debt as opposed to 30 gold, well, then it's more of a problem. At that point, you'd better actually go and... oh, dear. And, yeah, my character got ill. Ill and wounded. Yeah, this might not go well. We'll see, but it might not. So we're actually approaching the end of the episode now. I feel like you can see why I wanted to actually, like, this is not a usual thing I will be doing post-episode commentary. And hooray, the illness is gone. Very useful. But I just felt that there was an interesting enough bunch of stuff that happened that actually starting over from the save file would have made me really sad. And the assassination especially, like, you know, just suck it, capturing guy. Just you suck it so hard. I don't even know what he's going to say to that, but I bet there is going to be salt. I really hope there is going to be salt. So, all in all, this was a really good session. And I am quite pleased by the state of Scotland. The weakening of England, it all really paid off well. And just in general, I think we've set things up for a really interesting next episode. Like, we could continue to... it isn't even that I have to declare war against England. If the claim is successful, it will be against Mercia, but it depends how long that civil war goes on for. But that's all for the next episode. So, if you enjoyed this one, you can leave any comments below. You can hit the like button. You can check out my other CK2 videos. You can subscribe to my channel. And, as always, stay tuned for more.